Dead at 86, still undefeated. On April 29, 2026, a man died in intensive care at 86 years old. The obituaries called him controversial. His widow called him unforgettable. The people who loved him called him the last real outlaw. And the people who spent 50 years trying to keep him out of Nashville called him nothing at all. Because they were already gone. So which one of them was right about David Allan Coe? Here is what the headlines got right. He was controversial. He said things that cost him. He did things that cost him more. He burned bridges, so regularly that burning them became part of the act. He had a criminal record before most people his age had a driver's license. He wore a cape and a top hat on stage when Nashville wore pressed shirts and careful smiles. He recorded albums that radio would not touch and sold them out of the back of a van at motorcycle rallies. He was the man country music kept at arm's length for 40 years, while quietly borrowing everything he had. And here is what the headlines missed. He died with a widow at his side who loved him. He died with a catalog of songs that have outlived every format they were released on. He died at 86, which means he outlasted most of the people who told him he would not last. So what does it actually take to live a life like that? And what does it mean when a life like that wins? He was 9 years old when the state of Ohio first put him in an institution. Not a school, not a home, a correctional facility for children. He would spend the better part of the next 2 decades moving between reform schools, jails, and prisons, including the Ohio State Reformatory, the same walls that would later be used as a filming location for The Shawshank Redemption. He did not come from poverty and find music as a way out. He came from the kind of childhood that is designed to make sure there is no way out. And he found music anyway. Not because someone handed it to him. Because there was nothing else in those rooms except time and whatever a person carries inside them. He showed up in Nashville in 1967 with no label, no manager, no connections, and a hearse he was sleeping in parked on Music Row. The story sounds like a punchline. It was not a punchline to him. For 2 years he played anywhere that would have him and everywhere that wouldn't. He pressed his own records. He handed them to strangers. Nashville's response was polite and consistent. This is not what we are looking for. But here is the thing about a man who spent his formative years in institutions. He already knew how to exist inside a system that did not want him there. He had been practicing since age 9. In 1973 he wrote "Would You Lay With Me" in a Field of Stone. Tanya Tucker recorded it, it went to #1, and for years most people could not have told you who wrote it. In 1977 Johnny Paycheck recorded "Take This Job and Shove It" from a song David Allan Coe co-wrote, and it became one of the defining working-class anthems of the decade. He was the architect behind some of the most recognizable moments in outlaw country. And he spent much of that era standing just outside the frame of the photograph. He was not bitter about it. He kept writing. Productivity was his argument, and he made it every single day. In the 1990s, Pantera, one of the most successful heavy metal bands in the world, covered his music. His sound crossed genres the way water crosses terrain. Not by forcing anything, just by finding the lowest place and moving through it. He released more than 60 albums across his career. He performed on a custom tour bus shaped like a guitar. He played fairs, rallies, stadiums, and dive bars with equal commitment because to him the size of the room was never the point. The point was the song. The point was always just the song. When David Allan Coe died on April 29, 2026, his widow Kimberly said, "One of the best singers, songwriters, and performers of our time, never to be forgotten." 12 words. No press release. No publicist. Just a woman who knew him saying the plainest true thing she could find. And that is exactly the kind of ending a man like David Allan Coe deserved. Not a monument, not a ceremony, not an industry that finally decided to claim him. Just one person telling the truth in a quiet room. He started in a cell at age 9 with nothing but what was inside him. He ended at 86 with someone who saw all of it and called it unforgettable. That is not a tragedy. That is a life. The world spent 60 years trying to decide what to do with David Allan Coe. And he spent 60 years not waiting for the answer. If you want more stories about lives that refuse to go quietly, follow along. There are more coming.